Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, a place where you can come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 93, Maintaining Momentum, How to Hold On to Your Courage When the Going Gets Tough. Well, we're finishing up the month all about courage, and if you've been joining us, you know we've been talking about the cost of allowing fear to run your life. Today, we finish out by talking about how to actually hold on to the courage that you've built and the motivation when you hit the middle. You know, when the obstacles start popping up all over the place, or things simply are not going the way you had so carefully planned and worked for. When self-doubt begins to creep in. In other words, we're going to continue the movie after the credits roll, and the main character then has to go live real life. When it feels like no one is there cheering you on anymore. When the work gets hard, when the adrenaline fades, and things start happening that make you wonder why you even thought it was a good idea to change anything. Which is a normal reaction. You know, we want to go back into the box where it's safe and make this unhappen so that we don't have to face the fear. Are we on the wrong path? Have we made the wrong decision? Should we not be doing this right now? Are we crazy? I don't think anyone's journey doesn't have its challenges. Even though we know this intellectually, it's easy to forget when it comes to our own life. But first, if you've even reached the middle, I want to stop here for a second because it means you've been plugging away and doing the footwork you need to do. You started that degree. The weight loss journey, the life coaching, the financial self-discipline. You know, I think this means you at least aren't still sitting on the sidelines watching your life go by. And I want you to be proud of yourself for getting here, because guess what? Many people don't. They finish out their life with so many regrets of opportunities not taken and things not tried. So I want you to also remind yourself when you get scared, when the fear and doubt creep in, that at least you've gotten started. You have begun. Nothing happens until we start, until we take action. When we set out to take a risk, especially a big one to us, might be a little one to someone else, but to us it feels big. You know, we're already feeling so vulnerable, and therefore I think any hiccup can seem and feel like a catastrophe. Not that there aren't real things that go wrong, but I think it helps to discern the big from the little things that you can step over and keep moving. And sometimes we need help to figure that out. We need loving people to not judge us or ridicule us for freaking out over something small, but to sit there calmly and say, look, this isn't devastating. It's a small detour. This is okay. Or this is a big challenge. What do you want to do with this? Let's talk about that. So that we can discern between healthy fear, like, okay, this is a big change. This is a big detour. This really throws me off track. Or this is little and I'm being unhealthy with it in terms of I'm doing all or nothing. Well, forget it. I'm not going to do anything now because something small happened. Or I can't do this then. Probably isn't true. It's irrational. So discerning between real fear and irrational fear that we throw out there to protect ourselves from what? From being vulnerable. We don't want to be hurt, let down, disappointed, fail, be wrong. Vulnerability means trusting. It means trusting yourself. It means trusting people around you who are encouraging you to do this. It means trusting that other people have done it and it's going to be okay. It means trusting the universe to have your back. And that this is here for a reason for you to do. And of course you're going to have challenges on top of the initial one of just getting started and getting to the middle, right? But then why must there be roadblocks, we ask ourselves? Well, a couple of thoughts on that. One, we don't run the universe. We can't control all the variables, even though sometimes we forget that and think we can. We think if we just do all of our homework and due diligence and get everything lined up and all the people lined up, that it'll go very smoothly according to our plan, the way we think it should go. The other thing is, but we can't think of every variable when planning. It's impossible. There's people who do risk management and logistics. They're better at it than we are, maybe, but you still can't control for every variable. Who predicted a pandemic last year and that we'd still be in it? But I want to talk about something else for a moment, because I think that also a part of this is that, maybe we were in a wee bit of denial starting out. And here's the thing, that's okay. Because sometimes this is healthy, because here's the deal. You might never have gotten started if you knew, right? If you knew that you were going to run into roadblocks and obstacles, that self-doubt was going to come knocking on the door, that this wasn't going to play out the way you planned, would you have started? Probably not. I mean, clients say all the time, Mary, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me that after doing coaching that I was going to start outgrowing people, I was going to start needing things to change in my life, and I'm really frustrated. And I look at them, I said, okay, here's the deal. If I had told you before you started this process that you were going to have some loss here, that things were going to be able to remain static, because when we get healthier, we desire healthier for ourselves, so we raise the bar organically. And they're like, no. I said, that's why I didn't tell you. Because here's the gig. Let's talk about the benefits of the work that you're doing. Look at the big changes that you are making in your life. That is far more important than the unhealthy people and situations that are no longer in alignment with who you are becoming. Those losses are real, I get it, and holding on to them, keeping those things and people in your life, that wasn't going to have a great ending. We know that. So having a little bit of denial going in, not a big deal. It got you here. It got you to jump across the big divide to get to the other side and get started. Now that you're here comes reality. That's okay. At least we're over here and not back there, if that makes sense. So not expecting roadblocks is a great way to get started, I think. I mean, not being in denial, like big time, but a little bit, like it's okay, I'll be fine, I can do this kind of denial. But now that you are in it, it might help to remind yourself of the inevitable. And that just like the book, The Obstacle is the Way, that we've been reading all month by Ryan Holiday, the obstacle may actually be showing us and sometimes carving a path for us to follow. Maybe we're being guided. Maybe this is all for your good. Who knows? Because I do believe, and I know for myself, that obstacles push us in different and sometimes better directions, even though it doesn't feel better at the moment. I get it. I'm there. You're frustrated. You throw your hands up. You feel beat up by the process. Why is this happening to me? So today I want to talk about some tools that you can use to get through that setback, or just the plain old doubts when they come and settle in, because they're going to. Your brain is made to protect you from harm and keep you happy, like we've been talking about. That's the job of your subconscious. It's good because healthy fear keeps us from harm, but unhealthy doubt can keep us from taking risks that help us change our lives for the better. So here are some things you can practice. And before we get into them, I want to note that I believe this is practice, sometimes daily, sometimes weekly, sometimes a couple times a week practice. I want you to choose some things today that resonate with you, that you can put into play. Without it, it's going to be harder. Remember, we're trying to retrain your brain. You can't do that by doing it once. We'd like to have it that way. Wouldn't it be great? Program it in, you're done. But we're not a smartphone. We have to have that programming redone over and over. It's as if, I want you to think at first, that you are writing in the sand and here comes the tide. It's going to come wash it away and make it fade. And you got to keep writing and writing and writing until the tide goes out and the message is there. And you believe the message. That's the key. All right. So the first thing we want to do, and I know this sounds so cliche, but focus on the positive. I'm not asking you to ignore reality. I would never do that. I'm just saying make a choice to refuse to allow the negative to stop you. You're going to note the bad. You're going to acknowledge it. You don't do big denial. But then I want you to work to find the good. I want you to choose to do that. Choose what you want to focus on in the scenario. Take your power back that way. It's so easy to throw our hands up and say, well, great. Now it's all blown up. Now what? Instead, okay, that sucked. I'm not going to deny how I feel, and, not but, and, it's both. I'm going to choose to focus on maybe the silver lining in this, because that's going to keep me motivated, or that's going to keep me sane. Whatever your reason is, doesn't matter. Choose what you want to focus on is what I'm saying. We're not denying the negative and the frustrating setbacks and the new monkey wrench being thrown in, but we know that whatever we focus on grows in strength. So if you start believing that this is awful and you can't do it, you will eventually believe that and fulfill that prophecy. I'm sure you've done that plenty of times in your life. Take a second and think about those times. How does that feel? Is that what you want? Whereas maybe in hindsight, you found out later, like, crap, if you had just hung in there, right? It may have been a great opportunity. It may have turned out differently. So choosing to focus on the better things, the good things. In other words, at least this detour showed me things I didn't think about in the beginning. I know for me that happens all the time, and I have to learn to be more grateful for that. Humility is a big piece of this positivity. Humility goes, like my friend wrote the other day, goes along with courage. The courage to be vulnerable, to believe that you don't know all the answers and you're not supposed to, and you can trust that you are being guided. Whatever we focus on grows in strength. Choose carefully what you focus on. Again, not denying what hurts, but choosing instead that you're going to forge ahead anyway, because. All right, so a second way that we can practice being brave is by being brave in little ways, by getting comfortable with being uncomfortable. Remember the box we talked about this month. Courage is a muscle. Courage is a muscle. It will atrophy if we don't work it. Everyone thinks you're born with courage. Some temperaments, sure. Some people are lucky to not have trauma early in life, so they're a hell of a lot more courageous. Okay. But most of it is learned, and most of it is practiced. You got to do it to do it. You have to do it to be it. This is actually true because some of the research shows how small controlled steps can develop the courage muscle. Remember, we've been talking about throughout this podcast series that your brain loves the experiential data and makes decisions from there. So if it witnesses you taking small steps that make you feel uncomfortable, being the first one to say hi to someone in the grocery store, making that phone call you've been avoiding, risking saying no to your spouse tonight in a loving way. Every time you do that, your brain says, look what you did, therefore you can do more. It knows it, it believes it. I want you and I need you to have that data. That's why I always say start small, start with the low-hanging fruit, start with something you can kind of see yourself doing. It resonates, it feels like the right time. Practice being uncomfortable. Conversely, maybe this will make more sense this way. Every time you play it safe, every time you don't take a risk, you are telling your brain, this is the way to live. We don't take a risk. We stay in our dark box. This is how you live life. But you got to add to that the consequences. This is what we miss out in life. This is what we don't get to do, see, feel, experience, enjoy. Change about ourselves. Open the doors to wonderful things. Package deal. Remember? Everything, I think, is a package deal. So you're teaching your brain that it's good to be uncomfortable, just enough not to traumatize you, but remember, every time you do something uncomfortable, like it's out of your comfort zone, it's something you haven't done before, you have fear around it. Every time you do that, you show your brain, no, we're a lot more courageous than we thought we were. Look, we did that. No one died. Lovely. Look, we did that and something good came of it. Even better. So make a tiny change to try something new as well. Change up your habits, change up your patterns, do one thing different, change your routine in the morning. We want your brain to not get in a rut and play it safe. The brain wants routine because it thinks it knows what to expect. And some routine is really great. We need some traditions and routines and ways of doing things so that we're not always in fight or flight. I get it. But I think you know when you're feeling stuck and in a rut. Okay? So when you make small changes to your routine, it's a great way to practice being uncomfortable, but you're not taking any real risk. You can always go back to your old routine. There's very little possibility of collateral damage, but you're getting used to doing it. Another way to maintain your courage when you feel like you've hit the wall is keep going for vulnerable. Go for vulnerable. The more you disconnect from you, and when we don't get vulnerable, we disconnect from our real core self, I think the more disempowered you're going to feel, not empowered. Remember the last time you did something that was scary as hell but exhilarating as well? That's what I'm talking about. You felt more alive in that moment than you did playing it safe the rest of the year. So usually we think of habits as actions like, I don't know, brushing your teeth, getting ready in the morning, but they're also responses to different emotions. And so I want you to think about, are your habits fear-based responses and they become automated? Have you really taken a look at them? Like I was reading an article earlier this week, it says when we procrastinate, we're really procrastinating in response to feelings of self-doubt and perfectionism. Like, should I do this? Can I do this? Can I do it perfectly? Is it going to go well? What's going to happen? All that kind of stuff. The article says, and we put perfectionism into overdrive. We just self-sabotage. So I want you to think about your habits. What do you do habitually that's fear-based? To protect yourself. Protect yourself from risk. Remember we talked earlier, your brain likes predictability. Yeah, I want you to think about how you reward yourself for keeping things predictable. So I just want you to take this information today around this and just think about it. Don't beat yourself up. Don't be hard on yourself. But just kind of sit with it and see what kind of data comes up for you. It might be quite interesting. So look at your habits. Look at making yourself feel a little uncomfortable at a time. Go for vulnerable every moment that you can. You'll be more in touch with you and more in touch with your courage because it takes courage to be vulnerable. We know that. But the more we practice vulnerability, the more alive we feel, the more connected to self we feel and connected to others. Guys, that's going to motivate you to keep going. Feeling disconnected from maybe your goal or your true feelings or how badly you want this is a great way to throw in the towel. Because how are you going to stay motivated if you feel kind of bleh about it? All right. So another way is to reframe your limiting beliefs. And we've done episodes on this previously, so I won't dive too deep today. Please go back and check those out if you're not sure what I'm talking about. Limiting beliefs mean I limit myself, my abilities, and my life by things that I've come to believe about myself, which are usually not true. Things like, I'll never be able to do that. No one likes me. Life is awful. I'll never get there. It'll never happen. Things that we don't know to be exactly true, and they're probably not. Or how do we know? So I want you to reframe, do what's called a positive reframe. So instead of saying, I'll never be able to do that, you say, hey, maybe actually I can. And I want you to journal this or get it out or tell someone to cement it better into your brain. So instead of saying, I don't know how I'll ever find the time, what if you said instead, let me sit down this week and figure out where I can squeeze out maybe an hour or two to start. I know I need more time to devote to this, but let me see where I can begin. Do you feel how that has so much more possibility built into that than the first statement. First statement says it's not possible. The second statement is realistic, but it brings in the possibility that I can do this. So I'm asking you to be possibility focused and not out of the realm of possibility. Making it more feasible and plausible, I think it gives you hope and hopefully the fortitude to keep going. Versus being negative is only going to serve to demotivate you because, again, your brain doesn't know any better. It's going to believe what you tell it. That's why I want you to be oh so careful about what you are thinking inside your head, what you say to yourself and others on the daily. Your self-talk, if you look at that alone, that's going to change things greatly for you. All right. Another thing that's really important is to stay in today. We keep hearing this. Be present, be mindful, be here. Don't be trapped in the future of what could go wrong or the past around what did. Your history brought you here. It does not predict your future unless you want it to. So stay in today. What do I have in front of me today, you ask? I'm not going to worry about tomorrow. I'm not going to worry about what monkey wrenches are going to be thrown into my process tomorrow. What do I have going on today? Reminding ourselves that the footwork we do today is what is going to help bring about that outcome down the road. There was something I was working on 4 years ago that back then, do you think I felt like it was going to pay off? Of course not. It was pennies in the bank account, so to speak. But today, I'm finally reaping what I was sowing all along diligently, day in, day out, without seeing the benefits yet. That's the kicker. Sometimes we don't have control over when it bears fruit. We do have control over planting the tree, making sure it's watered and fertilized and taken care of every year. That we do have control over. So what's in front of you today? Stay in today, enjoy the moments, enjoy the journey too. God, we forget. The whole point of living is to enjoy the process because we know, like we've talked about before, like once you get the thing you wanted, like especially when you buy something, there's a perfect example, and then you have it and it's great for a little while, but then you're like kind of let down and you're on to the next thing to buy, right? If we were honest. It's fleeting, guys. The new car, the new outfit, the new tech gadget, it's great for a little while, but then we want other or better or more. So knowing that, try to stay here right now and do the best job you can with your today. Another thing that really helps us maintain courage, I think, is to focus on the brave people. They could be real people that you know, people in history, people in a movie. I don't care who they are. But don't just watch them. I want you to study them as if you were getting into role as an actor. What are they doing, saying, thinking? What have they learned? What have they shared? How are they facing things? What is their attitude? And what is their behavior? Even when they get kicked in the teeth. What are they doing with that? Because remember, they've paved or they are paving the way. So I want you to study their mindset and what did they face and what kept them going, especially if you don't feel like you have anything in your toolbox right now that feels strong enough to keep you going. Lean on what others have done and are doing. There's nothing wrong with that. And then I want you to practice emulating them. Here's why. I would much rather you focus on that than all the fear and doubt that you're sitting in. Because if you focus on being brave like them, I know that's going to get you to your goal a hell of a lot faster than sitting down on the bench. When we take on things and practice and do the act as if, hopefully we internalize what resonates for us. We practice it. We internalize the experience of acting differently, acting courageous when we're shaken on the inside. And then we get the results and then we see that we're glad that we did it that way. But eventually we internalize it as part of who we are. But not yet. You're not there yet, and that's okay. You're not supposed to be. You're still learning. Another thing I think can help us is to practice gratitude every day twice a day. Focusing on what you're grateful for, even if it's one little thing out of a bunch of bad stuff that happened yesterday, can pull you out of fear. And that's what I want to happen for you. We can't do this work staying stuck in fear. We got to do it despite the fear. What I'm asking you to shift is actually part of the magic. And remember to get support. You hear me talk all the time about loving accountability. I want you to try to hang out with others who are also practicing courage. I want you to be around people, spend time with people, listen to people who aren't avoiding life. They're not shrinking back. They're getting setbacks, sure, but then they're getting back up on their feet. They trudge ahead to pursue their goals, and they talk about why they're doing that and why they refuse to give up. You need to hear that and see that. We absorb who is around us, their mindset, their behavior, their outlook, their positivity or their negativity, their possibility mindset or their negativity mindset. So be careful who you're hanging out with, because that is definitely going to impact this whole process for you. Doesn't mean you ignore those other folks in your life. It's just, where are you putting your energy into what relationships right now? I want you to be hanging out with people who aren't prone to self-sabotage or playing it safe as a way of life. You want your brain to normalize taking on challenges and expanding your view and going for more, okay? Another big way to hold on to your courage is to practice both what I call grace and flexibility. So here are some questions. Can you pivot when obstacles are thrown your way? Or does it just make you throw in the towel and just stop and walk away? Are you open to different detours, or are you cemented in a particular route that you planned out? Okay. So first I want you to get in touch with and get honest about how flexible you are. Sometimes I don't get flexible. I've so poured my heart into something, right? I'm so overly invested and attached to the outcome, which in some ways is good. And it's good that we don't give up sometimes and we keep at it. Okay. But we got to discern what's an okay detour that I can handle and what is like, oh, hell no. I do need some flexibility and some grace to be able to pivot when I need to. There are some things, guys, that we cannot control. The pandemic is a perfect example of this. Those businesses who could pivot and those people who scrambled to try to work at home, those are the ones who are bringing in income. Is it fabulous? No. But it allowed them to thrive, relatively speaking, within a very bad situation. I think one of the things that can help you figure out how to pivot is, I want you to bottom line it. Like, I want you to figure out, okay, I'm good as long as ... Like, as long as I finish this damn degree, if I take a semester off, so be it. But as long as I'm back on the horse next semester, it's okay. It doesn't ruin everything. Or as long as I get this business off the ground before I'm 60, maybe it takes a little longer than I planned. It always does, right? Get your bottom line going. That way you're not completely thrown off by things happening. So you can be a little bit more flexible and accept it with grace. I also want you to get a little ahead of the game and think of alternatives you could live with before they happen while you're doing this bottom line stuff. That helps a lot. Because I think then you're not hit with the drive-by when stuff does happen. You've kind of already thought, I knew that was a possibility, so I can't say I'm shocked. That way you have more healthy control over your choices. And here's the thing, know that something always happens. Something always goes wrong on the big day, or when you move, or when you forget to pack something. They lose your luggage. You know what I'm talking about. To expect something not to go wrong, come on. Not that we're expecting doom and gloom. I'm not talking about that. What I'm saying is we're not so devastated when something does go wrong. It's like, okay, blip on the radar, keep it moving. Being flexible about the how and the when can really help you get to Oz, I think. And you might just find, like we've been saying, with hindsight, of course, that it was a better detour in the end. Now, the grace piece of this is the emotional part. And in the book, The Obstacle is the Way, Ryan talks a lot about what is your emotional reaction. Not that you don't let yourself have your feelings, but maybe you don't have a 5-year-old tantrum that lasts 3 weeks, where you blow stuff up and make it a lot worse than it ever was, or burn the bridges, right? Grace allows you not to react, lash out, and act out your disappointment. And a lot of that has to do with work through your feelings in a vulnerable way with a trusted human, and then choose to be a grown-up and face it anyway. The final piece, I think, is faith. Having faith. Having faith when it gets hard. I think most of the time, our disappointment is mixed with fear. Fear it won't be okay, that you'll be let down in a bigger way, that you finally opened up your heart to trust. Maybe yourself to take a risk, maybe the universe to love you enough to have this work out well, and you made yourself vulnerable. And when it doesn't go completely right, the fear comes up. Maybe I didn't make a good choice of being vulnerable, but I think this is where faith comes in. The kind of faith in whatever you believe in. I don't care if it's God, the universe, the goddess, the angels, the greater good, whatever. I don't think it matters, but I do think that faith in something greater than ourselves can give us the muster to keep it moving when we feel stuck and can't see the finish line. It's whatever you believe. Again, if the brain believes it's possible, it'll be more possible. I don't even know if it really matters why or where that comes from, where that faith comes from. But I think faith helps us to try harder or try different. I think it means believing that this would not have been put on your heart if it wasn't meant to be. And of course, as long as what we're doing is not driven by fear, ego, or getting even, then it's put on our heart for good reasons, I think. So these are some good things to put in your phone so you can refer back to when you feel frustrated or set back. The first one is, there's a reason and a good one that you even started on this journey. Take a moment today to write this down, because I want this to become your new mantra when things get hard and you're like, oh yeah, that's right. When your motivation starts to wane, I want you to read this and say, oh yeah, that's right. This is my why. A very powerful why, or I wouldn't be doing this in the first place. We can forget that once we get started on our journey to fix it. We can get far away from that. The next thing is think about 3 to 5 things that'll either remain or become true if you don't do this. What are the consequences of not taking this risk? For example, if I don't lose weight, I'll become diabetic, which is self-destructive. It looks like I don't take care of myself. Then I feel like crap about myself emotionally. It goes on. What are the real, true consequences that are very possible if you don't do this? On the other hand, I want you to think of some adjectives that describe how great it's going to feel to have met your goal or your goals. Like even if you just made it to 70% there. Sit with this for a moment. And don't forget to feel how proud you are of yourself for making the journey. Honoring yourself. Owning your truth. All right, take a deep breath. That was a lot today. Next time you have doubt, and I know you will, I want you to use some of these tools that feel good to use for you and remind yourself of the things we just talked about, the why you're doing this and the consequences of not doing it. That way you can remind yourself and recommit. It's okay to fall off that horse because that horse is always waiting for us to jump back on and ride. Okay, so today we talked about how to stay strong and stay believing when you hit a wall after you've taken the leap. When you get to the middle, when it feels more like drudgery sometimes, and you're not seeing any payoff yet. We talked about how to stay positive, focused, and reminding yourself why you are doing this. Thank you for joining me today. May you stay healthy, grounded, hold on to your courage. Focus on the good in yourself and others this week. Be sure to check the show notes at ownitpowercast.com. If you don't already get the newsletter, each Tuesday Go ahead and sign up there. It's the only thing I'll send you every week and has everything in it. All right, so pay it forward. Keep loving how courageous you are. And I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you could begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.